دخل بعد عليك. انت لا الجوالات تجلس عندي ولا
انا قاعد في الكاميرا.
انا
عبد الرحمن اللي بدك اقعد وين احسن؟
I go very, very quick Kuwaiti night Kuwaiti night والله ليش؟ ضحك هذا الكلام كلم فلوس كثير بس الناس كثير مو شوية والله ترى يمكن حطينا وين شو؟ بدك تجيب ولا خلاص؟
I need these on purpose because I was in
It's going to be starting in 2 minutes.
من زمان ما شفت كلام.
بس إلى لون ثاني. برسنتج على الاكزام الامتحان الثاني يكتب اي ماينس مدرس باكر او احيانا بس الفيديو كل شوي عاد خليت صور كم ساعه صور 7 ساعات التيشيرت المشكله ما في التيشيرت اتوقع وقف الفيديو.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are very pleased to have you all here today in Khaleeji Night 2016 at Penn State. And so we, as the hosts, and on behalf of the Omani, Emirati, Kuwaiti, and Saudi Student Associations, would love to very much thank you on sparing time and attending our humble event.
The Gulf Cooperation Council consists of 6 countries that share a lot between them. These countries are United Arab Emirates, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Bahrain, and they all have very glorious culture and traditions. Tonight, we would like to take the opportunity to share with you glimpses of our culture and show you how we, as citizens of these countries, play a role to keep traditions and cultural values in spite of modernization and development. So we would like to start our program with the recitement of the Holy Quran, recited to you by Abdullah al-Rashidi from Kuwait.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان. والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان. والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. رب المشرقين ورب المغربين. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you, Rashidi. Our first guest speaker this evening is a dynamic and innovative professional with exceptional leadership skills and a very solid background in consulting, operations engineering, economics, education, and counseling. His early problem solving and programming skills were evident in his achievement of the first place in the National Programming Contest as the youngest contestant at the age of 17, alongside other regional medals and awards. During his professional career, he has co-authored several papers and books in the areas of enterprise landscape, water security, philanthropy, and global horizon scans. Always interested in the development of the people and the organization around him, and has led several workplace initiatives to develop and optimize business processes while empowering the team's members through capacity building efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ahmed Fikri.
Marhaba sa everyone. Marhaba sa is how we say welcome in the United Arab Emirates. Unfortunately for you, you'll have to bear with my voice after that beautiful recitation. I'm really humbled. That was a great introduction. I'm a really humble man. I don't think I deserve all of that acknowledgements. I'm really humbled and flattered to have been invited here to talk on the Khaleeji Night. My friend Salim Al-Akbari, he invited me. But then, sorry Salim, but I think you might regret that decision in a minute. So again, I am Ahmed from the United Arab Emirates. Most people know the UAE by the tallest building in the world. What I'm here to talk about is a bit more about the culture. How we started from those really humble beginnings at the bottom left. That's how people used to live back in the early 1900s. And through a strategy of diversification, of getting people from all over the world. We weren't able to build that on our own. We had to be able to bring in people like you from all around the world to come and help us build a nation. So today I'm going to talk about how we went from the photo on the left to the photo to the right. Next, please. And this is why Salim might regret having me here. So I'm a proud Badger. You bring a Badger to Penn State, he has to show you their football team. I did computer engineering in UW Madison, so I hope you don't hate me for coming from Madison. Don't hate. Okay, next. And I'm currently doing my MBA at Wharton. And if you're curious, no, I do not endorse Trump. Next. Thank you. However, today is not a good day to talk about Trump. I'm going to talk about the Gulf Cooperation Council, or the GCC. Next. Next slide. Yes, and more specifically, as my colleagues mentioned, and you saw in the presentations, the following 6 countries. Next. So a little bit of history. The region really emerged from after about World War I. It was the Ottoman Empire. It broke down. There was several tribes living all around the region. And they were having a really tough life. There was not much natural resources. People were living off either pearl diving or fishing or just roaming around the deserts looking for oases and planting trees, palm trees specifically. Next. So really, between the 1930s, specifically around 1932 for Saudi Arabia, and all the way to 1971 for most of the other countries, that's when most of these countries were formed. And I'm going to try to be as general talking about the GCC as I can, but being from the UAE, excuse me if I try to focus a bit more on the UAE. So I'll use it kind of as a case for the region. Next slide. So, interesting thing. So this is what Dubai used to look like in late 1980s. And you can notice that's the main street. There's a few tall buildings. And what I want you to focus on is those 3 buildings to the left. If we go to the next slide and we forward 20 years. Next slide. This is what the city looks like. The tallest buildings are now really nothing compared to everything around them. So when a society goes from a place like that to a place like this, you don't just build buildings, you have to build the humans that come with it, the humans that live in that city, that operate that city. And whenever you do that in such a very short period of time, you face a lot of challenges. Your culture is being challenged, your way of living is being challenged, and you have people around you from all over the world. Most of the GCC countries, by the way, have huge populations of expats. In the UAE, for example, 90% of the populations aren't from the UAE. So you have to be very accepting of other cultures, to have them come and help you do this. But then, when that happens, you're also challenged by keeping your culture and sticking to your roots, knowing who you are while evolving with the world. So I'm going to talk a bit about some of the cultural features. If you can go to the next slide. So the main thing is hardship. It's a culture of hardship. My grandmother used to tell me all about when she was young, how far she had to walk, just like the ladies in the photos, to go to water wells, to bring in the water, carry it on top of their heads, and then walk all the way back to the city and do all the hard work. While the husbands, the men, usually were either going pearl diving, and they would go for months out in the sea. They come back, and literally, people in the town, mostly their wives and their kids, they would go to the seashore and wait for the ships to come back and literally count how many survivors are back. Some of them will see their families back, their husbands, others won't. It was a really tough life. So that was one of the pillars of that culture that we emerged from. If we go to the next slide. Then there's a culture of generosity. No matter how little people had, when a guest comes, they'd really have to give them the most that they could. And there's a huge, really famous story about one of the most generous Arabs in history, Hatim al-Ta'i, where someone came to him and he didn't have anything to feed that man, and he had to slaughter his own horse that he used just to serve his guests food. So there is a lot of focus on generosity. Next slide. I hope I don't bore you, by the way. Then we have a culture of humility. And I want to highlight 2 people in those photos. The one on the top left, wearing the white, the kandura, as we call it in the UAE. He is Sheikh Zayed, may he rest in peace. He was the founder and the president of the United Arab Emirates. And he's there talking to his consultant, planning the city, and they're just sitting on the floor. So there is this culture of no matter who you are, you have to be humble. You can't look at yourself as someone different from others around you. And at the bottom right, you see his son, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi at the moment, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. And he's also, the times have changed. It's 40 years difference between the 2 photos. And he's still as humble, sitting, leaning forward to the person talking to him, rather than sitting on a chair and say, hey, you come and bend over to talk to me. Next slide. And then again, some of the other aspects of cultures weren't necessarily fully preserved the way they are, but they've evolved. So for example, falconry back in the day, it was used to hunt. So you use the falcons to go and hunt for you. It was a method to gain food. Nowadays, there's McDonald's. You don't have to do that. You can drive up to a place, order food and get it. So we still do it though, and there is a lot of emphasis from the government or the families, the tribes, to keep on that tradition. It's much easier now. You don't have to chase after the falcon. You just drive your car to where it is. But we're still doing the same thing. We try to keep up with our culture because we have a famous saying from our founder, Sheikh Zayed, may he rest in peace, that من ليس له ماضي ليس له حاضر أو مستقبل. Who doesn't have a past doesn't have a present or a future. You have to know your past to know your future. You don't necessarily just cling to every part of it, but it guides you, it defines you. You can't run away from who you are, but you can always better yourself. Next slide. Same thing with extremism. So with horses, again, back in the day, horses were used mostly in fights. You can see the late King Abdullah on his horse. He would go to war with it because they were fast, agile. Nowadays, we're still doing the same thing, but it's mostly in races. And but again, you have to maintain that aspect of your culture, the attachment you had to the horses. And to the next slide, as well, to camels. Next. Okay. This is great. I can just say whatever I want and things happen. So same thing with camels. Camels are slower, but then again, they can stay with you for long distances. So people used to use them for travel, and now again we use them for racing and beauty contests, which is, I know it's a weird concept for you, but we can talk about that later. Next slide. Also embroidery. This was a cornerstone part of the culture, how we define ourselves. Again, people define themselves by their clothes, by how the art in the house, how things look around them. And this also links to my next point. If you see the lady up top on the right, she's using, we call it khos or saf al-nakhla. She's using parts of the palm tree to create different utensils in the household. So the plates, the things they cover the food with, they were all made out of different parts of the palm tree, the leaves and the stems. If we move to the next slide, please. And then you can see a more focused photo of it on the right. And you can see the man on the left, he's climbing the palm tree. When I was young, I used to see my grandfather until he was, may he rest in peace, until he was about 75 years old. He'd wake up, he has some palm trees in his house, and he'd go and he'd strap himself to the palm tree, climb all the way up and get the dates. And people had a huge attachment to the palm tree because from it they get food. And the food they get from the palm tree is amazing because the harvesting season is in the summer. You get the palm trees, the dates when they're fresh, but then you also preserve them for the winter time. So that was a main cornerstone aspect of their life. And then you use obviously the wood to make boats, you use the leaves to make the utensils that you can see on the right. Next slide. And as I mentioned, pearl diving and fishing were again very important aspects of people's lives. When you go pearl diving, what people used to do is you're basically strapped to a rope. You dive, you have this rope in your hand, and you have a clamp that's holding your nose. And people used to go down for about like 5-7 minutes without air, no oxygen tanks. And whenever they were feeling that they were running out of water, out of oxygen, you never run out of water in the sea, they pull on the rope and their colleagues basically pull them up. So you have to trust the person up top. If you're down there, you're just relying on them to pull you up. Next slide. And then there's an aspect that is often misrepresented, the notion of modesty. We always imagine people from the Arab world as only the man gets to do what he wants, but the woman is all covered up. But really, it applies to both. Men and women, it's a part of the culture, a part of the religion, to be modest in the way you dress up. You don't show off your body. So you can see on the right, that's the Prime Minister and the ruler of Dubai, and he's swimming in the sea, and he's still wearing a t-shirt. And this is a man who wins horse races. He's really athletic. There's nothing to hide in his body, but yet it's part of the culture to be modest. Even when I was young, wearing short shorts was something that people would make fun of you or shame you for doing. You have to wear something a bit longer, to be modest, not to show off, to show your body to me. Next slide. So how did we manage to get all of this done in this short period of time? In the photo here I have some of my colleagues from Wharton. We were going to the World Government Summit in Dubai, and we were highlighting how the government of Dubai has been, the government of the UAE has really evolved over the years. What are the benchmarks? What can we learn? And what really drove all of that is a focus on education. So one of the big elements of the society that people often either we forget or we don't really know about those countries, is that there was a lot of focus on education, especially for women. In the UAE, you can't let your daughter stay at home and not go and get education in schools. It was mandatory, not only for men, not only for boys, but also for girls, because everyone in society has to be educated. And today in the UAE, about 30% of ministers in the government are female. So there is the sense of we all have to drive society together. It's not just the male, it's not just the female, it's both. Next slide. So while we switched homes and modes of transportation, rather than the camel, we drive a Ferrari, or maybe a Toyota, whatever you like, or whatever you can afford. And we switched homes. Next slide. Our culture values still didn't change. Just because you're driving a fancy car doesn't mean that you no longer stop for someone in the desert that you find that you want to serve coffee or give water or make sure that they're fine, you don't need anything. You always try to help people around you. Next slide. The one before. Yes. So we continue to welcome and embrace other cultures. And that's a video of Pharrell's pretty famous song, Happy. And it's a Dubai version of it. You can Google it, YouTube it, find it. It's an amazing music video. But again, we like to embrace our cultures because we know we on our own can't build a society. We can't be part of the world if we are not part of that world and if the world isn't part of us as well. Next slide. And also, we do all of this while celebrating our own culture. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I gave you some information. Thanks a lot. Next slide. Shukran.
Mr. Ahmed, thank you so much for your great talk with us tonight. Oud is one of the most popular string musical instruments in the Middle East, especially in the Gulf countries. Tonight, our talented fellow penstator, Abdulrahman Al-Kaf, will play some oud for us. So let's enjoy his performance.
you.